Hello ladies and gents, welcome to another repair video. Today we're going to be taking a look at this PlayStation 4 Pro which has been sent in, and this particular console has been sent in because it has a rather different kind of issues. So this particular console was sent by the customer who attempted to clean it, and what it says on the ticket is customer open to clean, damaged antenna connector plus power issues. So a rather interesting thing here. So I'm not really sure what to expect when I get inside. I don't know exactly how the connector has been damaged, but it's not the typical 5-volt connector that we usually see. So I thought to make a video on this one because this one's rather interesting. So let's turn this on first of all and see what happens when we attempt to power it on. We need an IEC connector for this. So HDMI connectors in and the power connectors in. I did just press the button and it's 2 seconds, then it turns off. 2 seconds, then it turns off. So what does that tell us? Well, 2 seconds then off usually indicates an issue with either the 5-volt power supply or the 12-volt power supply. So what that's telling me there is possibly the 12-volt power supply, the pins have been squashed, and that's all that's going to be wrong with it, where them both basically both pressing into one connector. But we'll see. Obviously I'm yet to open this up. I don't do it until I actually start the video, but we're going to see what's going on with it. So let's start disassembling it and we'll see if we can figure it out. So this is a rather different kind of problem with the PS4 Pro. Usually when we see home attempt at cleaning and home attempt at fixing it, we usually see the 5-volt connector ripped off, as I've got many videos on previously. But we'll see what happens with this one. Hopefully it's nothing too serious. So let's just start disassembling then. So let's pop the screws into a little compartment here. Feels like these have been put back together with an electric screwdriver, which I never recommend. That one's not coming out at all, and that's the exact reason why, because it ruins the threads. Same with that one. Okay, well, never mind. So when you're using an electric screwdriver, you have absolutely no control over the torque of the screws, and you end up with ruined threads. But that's fine. As long as it goes back together, it's fine. Whoops. Never mind. Okay. Right, so let's pop this base off and we'll see what we're dealing with. Alright, so I can visibly see the antenna damage there, so we can see where it's been scratched up and stuff. Looks like where someone's tried to get the antenna in and it hasn't worked, so that's going to need replacing. That's absolutely fine. We should be able to do that. It shouldn't be too much of an issue. They are just soldered on, and heating up from the bottom is probably going to remove it. I've never done one, but you know, it's still just a connector. It should be fine. So let's just carry on disassembling then, and we'll see what else is wrong with this. I'm just going to go with enough to be able to get the power supply out. So removing all of these isn't necessary, but I've got to remove them anyway to be able to fix that connector. So I may as well sort that out now. One thing that could be causing the power on and off issue is that could be shorting out somehow, and that could be causing it. So because there's possibly a short there, it might cause a power issue. I can't guarantee it, but it might. And let's have a look. Okay. Right. I'm not sure what that was. Five volt connector seems fine, so that seems okay. So let's just reseat this and just see if it was plugged in incorrectly. That is a possibility. So let's have a look now then. And it's still got a 2-second blue light of death, so that could be a power supply issue, but it could also be down to the APU as well, and it also could be down to this connector right here. So let's figure it out. Let's take this apart and let's see if we can do some kind of troubleshooting, see if we can find anything wrong. We're not going to know more now until we remove the motherboard from the case, so we'll do that now. And this one might end up as an interesting repair. I've got a strange feeling that maybe something's shorting out inside on the board. Maybe something's been dropped inside there which is conductive. I mean, that's worrying, the fact that that's just sprung up as soon as I've started to loosen some more of these screws off. That can be quite worrying, because that could indicate that the board's got some pressure on it somewhere. And I also need to inspect this area as well, because the scratch mark's just here as well. So I need to inspect this area and try and figure out what kind of damage has been done here. There's obviously some pretty bad damage, so we're definitely going to need to evaluate and figure out what's gone on, which is why I'm going to be leaving the disassembly process in the video as well, because I want to see and I want to show on camera what's been done to this as well. And we've got a chewed screw as well, so I need to try and find a way to extract that screw. And I think a flat screwdriver is probably going to be the best option. There we go. That works. I might as well just carry on removing these with a flat screwdriver, just because they are all looking a little bit rough, apart from this last one. So I'll just carry on with a flat screwdriver, just make my life a little bit easier rather than having to keep swapping back. So we'll just remove all of the screws and get the board out, and we can give it a good visual inspection inside that way. It's a little bit strange how it's causing an issue which shows symptoms of the APU being damaged. That is a bit concerning, if I'm being perfectly honest. I mean, has the mount been connected wrong? That's jammed in there a little bit. Yeah, has the mount been connected wrong? Has it caused cracks on the solder underneath the APU? Has it caused trace damage on the APU? We don't know. We don't know anything. It might end up needing a reball because of the damage, because the only indication so far is pointing towards APU damage or a short on the motherboard somewhere on the 12 volt rail. And if it's short on the 12 volt rail, then it's probably going to be fine. But if it's a short on the APU, or if it's issues with the APU, then it could be bad news. The clamp doesn't appear to be... Basically, the clamp doesn't appear to be mounted incorrectly. But that said, it could have still been mounted unevenly, and that could have still caused some sort of an issue at some point. This is why you should always research before going in blind. I'm assuming this console worked absolutely fine. Actually, one interesting thing, that's not quite connected properly. So that could be a cause. Let me just disconnect that. I've just noticed that. So before I carry on disassembling, I'm going to just try and turn it on. I know it's going to overheat. Please don't call me out for that. I know it's going to overheat, but if it does overheat, then it means that it was that ribbon. And I've also took pressure off the APU now as well. There we go. That's staying on now. So, is it just a case of that was incorrectly mounted, or was it the disk drive ribbon what was causing it? Because I've only just noticed that, but I'd already started to disassemble this. So I'm going to put that back exactly how it was with the screws. These screws was relatively tight, so I'm going to put that back exactly how it was. I mean, I don't think that was over tight, but I want to put it back how it was, just so I can rule out what it was. But the question now is, are we going to need to end up replacing a disk drive if it was the disk drive that was causing it? Because as far as I'm aware, the disk drive runs on 12 volt. I could be wrong, but as far as I know, it runs on 12 volt. And if it runs on 12 volt, that would be in line with a 2-second blue light of death, because the only two causes of a 2-second blue light of death, to my knowledge, is a short on 12 volt and the APU. So that would be in line with the 2-second blue light of death, which is exactly what this symptom was. So let's have a look now. Let's try and turn it back on again now. And the console itself is turning on. So now let's plug in the disk drive. So basically what this is doing here is it's a process of elimination, trying to figure out exactly what was causing it. Because we don't, if we can help it, we don't really want to just call it done, if that makes sense. We don't really want to just say, okay, there's your console back, it's fixed. We want an explanation as to why it was happening, so we can go straight for that in the future. Like, for example, if we get another scenario the same, where it's been incorrectly reassembled, and it was, for example, a disk drive, we can say, right, let's have a look at the disk drive. It's information, and we're taking in this information and we're storing it for the future. So if we do come across it in the future, then we can possibly know one more place to look, basically. So let's now I've plugged the disk drive back in. I want to see if it shorts out again. Okay, so the disk drive is working now. Now here's the true question. Oh, hold on. Hold on. Huh. Right, it is showing some signs of a very weird power issue. Let's see if that turns off again. It's not going to overheat now because I've put the clamp back on, so that's absolutely fine. Huh. Very odd. Right, well unfortunately I don't have an explanation because it's not replicating the issue when I'm moving that one particular ribbon around. So I don't have an explanation for that issue, I'm afraid. Let's carry on disassembling it, and we'll see what we can do about that connector there. But unfortunately I can't give an explanation because I'd done two things before I checked. So what I should have done really, if I'd have known, is disconnect that and then turn it on, and then that way then I could have basically determined what was the cause, whether it was just because this was over tightened or whether it was the disk drive. Unfortunately on this occasion I missed out on that opportunity because basically I didn't know that that was kind of on a slant. I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I'll include it down here if that was actually on a slant when I first disassembled it, or whether it was my arm moving and knocking it. I'll include it down here and let you know whether it could have been a cause. But obviously I'll have to wait until editing before I can do that. If that wasn't on a slant, so if that was perfectly straight and that was installed correctly, then the only thing it could have been was the APU clamp. If that's the case, at some point in the future it may exhibit signs of damage. I mean, that is fairly tight. I will say that those screws are fairly tight. I didn't take these two screws out, and these two are still fairly tight. So has it been over tightened? Could have been. I mean, that's fairly tight if you ask me. Based on how tight I tighten them, that's fairly tight. So could we have had an over tightened APU clamp? That's very possible. That's very possible indeed. And just by disturbing the clamp, it could have released that pressure on the APU and basically caused this to work again. So unfortunately I'm not going to know unless I start editing the video, and I can't do that till I've finished the video. So it's kind of a catch-22 situation, but I'll find out. For sure I'll find out. Well, never mind. There we go. Okay, so let's get the board out then, and let's see if we can do something about this Wi-Fi antenna, or whatever it is. It's either Wi-Fi or a Bluetooth antenna, one of the two. And horrible HY 10 thermal paste. We'll have to change that because that's horrible. But never mind. Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's some very visible signs of scratches here as well, where the customer's damaged it trying to remove them screws. That screw is now chewed, and that's going to need an extractor to get out. I'll see if I've got one. If I've got one, I'll replace it, but if I haven't, then I'm not going to worry too much. You know, that's a job for another day if that's the case, but we'll see. If I've got one, I've got one. If I haven't, I haven't. Okay, so let's take a look at this under the microscope then, and let's see if we can do something about it. Now, the one annoying thing about these is that the 12 volt connector gets in the way, so we have to hang them over the edge of the table. So I'm going to pop it under the microscope and we'll inspect this area. I'll see what I can do about it and see if there's anything I can do to actually replace it. Alright, so we can see what these are meant to look like. So if you take a look at that there, you can see what they're meant to look like, and then you can see what this one looks like. So very mangled indeed. There's no way on earth that we're going to get a antenna to lock into there. So that's definitely going to need replacing, and I think the best solution for this is to heat it up from the bottom and basically remove it that way, like we would with a plastic connector, because we don't really want to put heat around the area because of the other connectors. That means we'll have to end up changing more than one, and also there is plastic on this connector anyway, so it's going to melt the new connector that we put on if we end up doing it from the top. And the good news is we can do this by taking one of those connectors from any donor board, because those connectors are standard. So any PS4 Slim, any PS4 Pro, we can take that connector from. We can take it from anything that's got one of those Wi-Fi antennas on, so for example a laptop. So if you don't have a PS4 donor board lying around, you will find those connectors elsewhere. So I've got myself here a PS4 Slim, and if we take a look here, let's find it. There it is. So if you take a look there, we've got a connector on there which we should be able to use absolutely fine. And I'm going to remove this by heating up from the bottom. So I'll set the camera up so as we can actually see it, and then hopefully we can get it off without damage. Alright, so we've got a nice clear image here, so hopefully I can do this properly. So what I'm going to do is just heat up from the bottom, and I've got my hot air set to 480 degrees Celsius, and I've got an airflow set of 50%. So I'm just going to come in from the bottom. So right now my nozzle, as you can see, is just there, and I'm heating up from the bottom to melt the solder, and hopefully we can get it off without too much trouble. Right, I'm struggling a little bit with this, I'll be honest. I am struggling a little bit with this. There we go. Finally got that off. That took a long time. That took an awful long time to get off. I mean, I'm not worried about the donor board, obviously, but I hope it don't take that long to get off with the other one. I mean, it depends on the surface area, I suppose. Okay, so we've got a replacement connector there ready to go onto the customer's board. So now what we need to do is actually get this connector off. So I'm wondering if it's just going to be easier to just knock down the airflow and direct the heat directly onto this connector off the top. So if I drop the airflow down to 30% and keep the hot air at 480 degrees, I'm not going to risk damage to the other connector because it's basically nowhere near where the hot air is. Okay, that come off a lot better. So what I can do now that the connector is actually off, is I can replace the solder that's there at the moment with leaded solder. And what that's going to do is it's going to lower the melting temperature enough to where I can probably heat up from the bottom. So fingers crossed that works. Like I said, I've never changed one of these connectors, so I don't actually know. And I don't know the best method for replacing it. So hopefully what I'm about to do works. Of course, you are going to run into a job once in a while where you're going to be unsure of the best method. I wouldn't recommend practicing on customer boards, and neither would any other technician who's got any respect for customer devices. But there are going to be jobs which you've never come across before, and this isn't technically practicing because we've got experience in the field already. We've already got experience with micro soldering. So it's a little bit different to practicing a new trade for the first time, or with little experience. So what I'm going to do is just replace the solder that's there with some fresh leaded solder. Okay. There we go. So that's going to lower the melting temperature, which we need to actually drop this connector on. So what I'm going to do is just get the connector roughly in position. So there's the bottom of it, as you can see. And like I said, this has come off a PS4 Slim, but they're all the same connector. There's just a standard coaxial connector. let's just make sure that's in the right orientation. Okay, so it's got to be spun round to there. There we go, just like that. Okay, and now that's roughly in the right location. When we apply hot air and the solder melts, it should put itself into place. Surface tension should take over. Okay, so I can see that starting to change now. Now the problem is I don't actually know whether it's soldered, but I don't think it is. And it actually is, it's not moving. There we go. So a little blast of heat on the top there at the last second, just to make sure it solders correctly into position. And I believe that's actually soldered on. So that wasn't that bad. It takes a while because of the thickness of the board, but that appears to be soldered absolutely fine. We'll just clean it up there with a bit of isopropyl alcohol, just get rid of any excess flux. There we go. Now let's have a look. Let's see close up at what it looks like. So one way we can test it is if we just expose a teeny tiny bit of the trace. So it doesn't have to be a major amount, just enough to get the probes to connect. So you can see we've got a teensy bit of exposed copper there. And then if I put the multimeter into continuity mode, and we pop one probe on the exposed bit of trace, like the tiny, really tiny bit of exposed trace, and the middle, and we have a connection. So that's connected fine. Good. Okay. Right, so that appears to be connected, and I don't think it's sitting too high off the board or anything like that, so it should be absolutely fine. We should be good for testing, and hopefully this is going to work. So one thing I am going to do, like I said, is I'm going to get rid of the old thermal paste because this is very cheap and nasty. So there's the majority off, so let's just give it a nice good scrub now with a bit of isopropyl alcohol, just get rid of the excess and also get rid of the old thermal paste from the original installation at the factory. There's a mixture of two different thermal pastes there, which isn't that much of a problem, but I'd rather have a nice clean APU to work with. So let's just dry off the area now and give it a nice scrub. There we go, perfect. So now we can apply some fresh MX4 and hopefully it should keep the console cool. Well, I say hopefully, it will keep the console cool. There we go. Okay, and I believe the customer's already cleaned everything out. The fan looks clean enough, and I can't see any built up dust inside. So all we're going to do is just get rid of the thermal paste off here, and good to go. So I'm just going to wipe that with a cloth. There we go. Okay. Right, before we reassemble it fully, let's just test all of these connectors, make sure that they all clip in absolutely fine. That one's perfect. And then we've got another one which goes here. I know the plate's not on, but I'll plug it in anyway just to make sure. And then there's this one here, which is the one we replaced. And is that damaged? Yes, it is. Okay, so new antenna, or rather a replacement antenna. It's not brand new. I've just taken it from another case. It's fine. It doesn't matter as long as it works. So let's pop that in position there. There we go. Screw that in. Let's thread that through to the other side of the chassis. There we go. Make sure it's routed correctly. Okay, and now we should be ready to reinstall the motherboard. Okay, so let's get a HDMI cable. Let's plug that in, and we can test everything else while we're at it. So, fingers crossed. And no more 2-second blue light of death, which is absolutely awesome. So let's switch over to the capture card then. It might boot into safe mode because of the amount of reboots and stuff it's had. No display. Oh, there we go. Okay, never mind. I was going to say. Phew. Awesome. Okay, so there's a disc already in there, so I can test it with the customer's disc. And it seems to be spinning. So I'll let this boot up. Hopefully we don't have any more issues, like I said. And there we go. So that's booting up absolutely fine. So I'll just log in. And there we go. Right, so it says that Star Wars Battlefront 2 is in the drive. So let's see if that's true. Appears to be. Good. Now we're going to wait for it to load. Oh dear. Right, there we go. Right, so let's just give it a full test. Let's test it by connecting to Wi-Fi. Make sure that works. Let's go for easy. Come on. There we go. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Oh, get off. Yeah, I don't care. Stop. Thank you. Right. Okay, so if you are new to the channel, there is a subliminal message in my Wi-Fi password. We all need to take extra attention for this. So there is a subliminal message. I can't tell you what it is because that would be cheating. You need to work it out for yourself and follow the advice. Let's press OK. So let's make sure we connect. So let's make sure that it actually works on the internet, and hopefully it's all good. Test internet connection. There we go. chain IP address. There we go, perfect, absolutely beautiful. Right, just one thing left to test and then I can call this job done. Sound and screen, video output, and I don't have 4K on here, but I'll test it in the house, that's fine. And there we go. So that's loading in 1080p, so 4K should work absolutely fine. And that, ladies and gents, is that. So let's just summarise on this one then. So this one was sent in because it had a previous attempt at cleaning by the owner of the console, and he damaged the Wi-Fi antenna and also caused a weird issue with the power. So it caused a 2-second blue light of death and a damaged Wi-Fi antenna connector, so the coaxial connector. By replacing the connector, we was able to fix that. A little bit more difficult than I anticipated, yes, but not impossible with a little bit of patience. But then on top of that, we don't actually know what caused the 2-second blue light of death. I mean, I'll have to go back through the video to figure that out, and to figure out if it was caused by the disk drive or not, because I can't actually remember whether that was slanted. But it could have been that. It could have been that the APU clamp was over tightened. That's the only two things that I can think of what could have possibly caused it. But the good news is it's fixed. I do like to get answers wherever possible. Sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes we just get lucky, and sometimes we fix it without even realising we fixed it. But that's going to be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very, very much for watching. If you do have any comments or questions, leave them down in the comment section down below. I will always do my best to answer them. And if you like what I do here and you want to see more repair videos, be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell notifications so that you're notified every time I upload. If you want to support the channel and help me to continue to make these videos, then you can become a channel member for as little as £1.99 per month. And channel members get early access to most of my videos. But that's going to be it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, see you later. Bye for now.